The stolen contract. Nadia's sweet revenge. You know that moment when 10 years of your life gets erased in a single PowerPoint slide? That's exactly what happened to me on a Tuesday morning in Chicago, when Blake Sterling decided my career was worth less than his need to impress his uncle. My name is Nadia Vance, and I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I was wrong. I sat in the glass-walled conference room on the 37th floor of Sterling Tech Solutions, my portfolio of the Titan contract spread before me. 10 years I had nurtured this account, from a $50,000 startup deal to our company's crown jewel, a $75 million enterprise contract renewal. Blake Sterling walked in carrying himself like a man with a secret. 28 years old, fresh out of Northwestern with an MBA in what he called personal brand architecture. He was CEO Martin Langley's nephew, hired as a strategic innovation consultant. His Armani suit cost more than most people's rent, and his smile had that practiced quality of someone who'd never heard no spoken with conviction. When he plugged his laptop into the presentation system, I felt the first flutter of unease. The slide that appeared made my blood run cold. Titan 2, fresh vision, bold leadership. Below it was a line that hit like a physical blow: account transition. From legacy management to future-forward strategy. My name was crossed out with a thick red line. Below it, in bold letters, was Blake Sterling's name with the title Senior Account Director. Blake cleared his throat. Thank you all for being here. After careful consideration, we've decided the Titan account needs a fresh perspective. Someone who understands the current digital landscape, who speaks the language of modern consumers. He clicked to a comparison chart. On the left, traditional approach included established, conservative, relationship-based. On the right, innovative strategy featured buzzwords like agile, disruptive, growth hacking optimized. Nadia has done remarkable work building the foundation, Blake continued patronizingly. But foundations are meant to be built upon, not lived in forever. Nadia will be transitioning to Director of Legacy Client Relations, focusing on historical aspects while I handle strategic growth initiatives. Director of Legacy Client Relations, corporate speak for, we're putting you out to pasture. I sat calmly while my mind raced. The Titan contract wasn't just my biggest account, it was my specialty. I knew their C-suite personally, their concerns, their strategic goals. More importantly, I knew something Blake didn't. The contract contained a clause that made his hostile takeover impossible, but I said nothing. Not yet. After the meeting, Blake approached with a wrapped gift box, his smile now genuinely malicious. A little something to show appreciation for your hard work, he said. Inside was a novelty coffee mug with a cat hanging from a tree branch captioned, "Hang in there." Below that, "Your name doesn't matter as much as the brand." I stared at that mug, feeling something cold crystallize in my chest. It was clarity. The kind that comes when someone shows exactly who they are. "Thank you," I said steadily. "This is very thoughtful." Blake grinned wider. He thought he'd won. I placed the mug on my desk where I could see it daily and attached a sticky note. A reminder, "Thank you." That afternoon, I drove to Rosie's Diner, on the outskirts of town. The kind of place unchanged since the 1,980 seconds, with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who called everyone honorable. Nobody would look for a disgraced account executive plotting her comeback there. I ordered coffee and pie, opened my laptop, and began digging. The Titan contract was 127 pages of dense legal language. Most people, including Blake, would see impenetrable corporate jargon. But I had lived in those pages for years, knowing every clause, every provision, and I knew about Clause 14.3. The account lead continuity provision was buried on page 89 between shipping terms and dispute resolution procedures. It had been my idea, born from watching a competitor lose a major client when they switched account managers mid-contract without warning. I had insisted on including similar language, and Titan's legal counsel, Evelyn Reed, had agreed immediately. She was a former prosecutor who understood continuity's value in business relationships. The clause was elegantly simple. Any change in account leadership required written approval from Titan Corp's executive team. Any unauthorized change would constitute material breach, allowing Titan immediate termination without penalty. Blake had just triggered that clause without knowing it. I spent the afternoon making copies. Digital, physical, encrypted backups in 3 locations. Every email, meeting note, recorded conversation. My meticulous documentation was about to become Blake's nightmare. By Thursday, Blake's plan was clear. My keycard was deactivated for Titan floors. My name was removed from account email lists. Meeting invitations that had included me for 3 years suddenly stopped. The isolation was systematic. Blake wanted no interference with his grand debut. During the all-hands meeting, Blake delivered his speech about embracing change and letting go of old paradigms. He spoke about dead weight and legacy thinking. Eyes finding mine as he mentioned people who resist evolution. I visited HR and requested all my employment documentation. When Janet asked why, I said I was updating personal records for tax purposes. Then I sent a carefully worded email to Evelyn Reed at Titan Corp. Evelyn, I hope you're well. I wanted to inform you of internal changes to the Titan account management structure at Sterling Tech. I'm no longer serving as primary account director, just keeping you informed. Best regards, Nadia. I didn't mention Clause 14.3. Evelyn Reed hadn't survived 30 years of corporate law by missing important details. Friday afternoon, Blake appeared at my cubicle looking pale. His swagger was replaced by panic. Titan Corp wants a final transition call Monday, he said, trying to sound casual. They specifically requested you be on the call too. Of course, I said. I want to ensure a smooth transition. Blake nodded, but his smile looked painful. Great, just introductions and that kind of thing. After he left, I called my attorney Patricia Moss, who'd handled my legal affairs since my divorce. I sent her the Titan contract with Clause 14.3 highlighted. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I dressed carefully. Black suit, minimal jewelry, understated professionalism that commanded respect. At 1:45, I made coffee in Blake's mug and settled into the booked conference room. Blake arrived late with his laptop and expensive suit, slides prepared with flashy animations. Ready to hand over the reins? He asked. More than ready, I replied, sipping from his gift mug. Blake began with typical fanfare. His opening slide featured dubstep music and flashing graphics, Titan 2, Innovation, Velocity, Vision. The font looked like an energy drink advertisement. Good afternoon, Blake said with artificial enthusiasm. I'm excited to present our revolutionary approach to the Titan partnership, focused on digital-first strategies and next-generation consumer engagement. On screen, Richard Sterling, Titan Corp's CEO, sat with polite skepticism. Next to him was Evelyn Reed, whose presence told me everything about how this would go. Blake launched into his presentation about synergistic optimization and cross-platform brand amplification. He used phrases like TikTok native messaging and authentic brand. Storytelling with YouTube-learned confidence. I sat quietly, occasionally nodding. Then Evelyn Reed cleared her throat. Excuse me, Blake, she said with courtroom authority. I have a question about the account transition process. Blake faltered slightly. Of course, Evelyn. What can I clarify? I'm looking at Clause 14.3, the account lead continuity provision. It states that changes in primary account management must be approved in writing by our executive team. Was this authorized through proper channels? Blake's face went through several color changes. Well, this is internal restructuring. The partnership spirit remains the same. We're optimizing resource allocation to better serve your evolving needs. Evelyn's expression didn't change. Nadia, are you still serving as senior account director on the Titan contract? This was the moment I'd prepared for all week. No, I am not. As Blake mentioned, I've been transitioned to a different role. My access to Titan projects and communications has been revoked. Richard Sterling leaned forward. Could you repeat that? I am no longer the primary account director for the Titan contract, I said clearly. That responsibility was transferred to Blake Sterling without, to my knowledge, any written authorization from your team. Blake frantically typed on his phone under the desk, but it was too late. Evelyn consulted documents. Blake, I'm afraid we have a problem. Clause 14.3 is explicit about authorization processes for account changes. Without proper approval, this constitutes material breach of our agreement. Blake's composure cracked. Surely we can work something out. The contract is more of a guideline, right? We're committed to serving Titan's needs with qualified team members. Contracts, Evelyn said with dry precision, are not guidelines. They are legally binding agreements. This change was made without consultation or approval from our end. Richard Sterling straightened. Blake, this puts us in a difficult position. Titan Corp has built this relationship on trust and continuity. Nadia has been our primary contact for 3 years. She knows our business, our challenges, our long-term strategy. We don't make major transitions lightly, and we don't appreciate having them imposed without warning. Blake was sweating despite the air conditioning. I understand your concerns, but if you give me a chance to demonstrate the value I can bring. The value, Evelyn interrupted, of honoring contractual obligations, unless Nadia Vance is immediately reinstated to her full role as senior account director, with all related access and authority restored. We'll exercise our right to terminate this agreement under Clause 14.3. $75 million. Gone. Because Blake thought he knew better than an 18-month negotiated contract. Blake looked ready to faint. Surely there's room for negotiation. We're professionals, we can work out a compromise. Richard Sterling's expression turned cold. Blake, the compromise was the contract we signed 3 years ago. The compromise was the terms we've operated under successfully. You unilaterally changed those terms without consulting us. That's not how $75 million business relationships work. I took another sip from Blake's mug and waited. Evelyn shuffled papers. We need a decision within 24 hours. Either Miss Vance is restored to her full position, or we'll issue formal termination notice. This is not negotiable. The call ended with Richard Sterling's polite goodbye, leaving Blake and me alone. He stared at the blank screen, expensive suit wrinkled. I closed my laptop and stood to leave. "Nadia," Blake said, voice small and desperate. "I didn't know about that clause." I paused at the door. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Blake," I said quietly, "the people who write the small print remember where we put it. And we're patient enough to wait for people like you to trip over it." By 4 p.m., I sat in Martin Langley's corner office with its panoramic Lake Michigan view. Martin was silver-haired and sharp-eyed, having built Sterling Tech from a small consulting firm into a major Chicago player. Present were Martin, Janet from HR, and Patricia Moss, my attorney. Blake was notably absent. "Nadia," Martin began wearily, "the company recognizes we made an error in how the Titan transition was handled." I nodded silently. "We'd like to offer full reinstatement to your previous role, plus 20% salary increase, and guarantee that you'll have final approval over future account management decisions." Patricia leaned forward. "That's generous, Martin, but we need to discuss the circumstances." My client was publicly humiliated, had her professional reputation questioned, and was essentially demoted without cause. Martin's jaw tightened. "What are you looking for?" "Full reinstatement, but not to the previous role. Nadia has proven her expertise and client relationships are irreplaceable. We want her promoted to Senior Vice President of Client Relations, with equity participation and a board advisor seat." Martin looked at me directly. "What do you want, Nadia?" I had been thinking about this since Blake crossed out my name on that PowerPoint slide. "I want Blake Sterling gone," I said simply. "Not transferred, not reassigned. Gone. And I want written guarantee that no future account transitions will be made without client approval and my direct involvement." Martin nodded slowly. "Blake's employment was terminated this afternoon. And you'll have final say over all client relationship management decisions moving forward." I looked at Patricia, who gave me a slight nod. "Then we have a deal," I said. The paperwork took 2 hours. When finished, I had been promoted to Senior Vice President of Client Relations with 40% higher salary. I had equity in the company, decision-making authority over account management, and guarantee that no client relationships would be disrupted without my approval. More importantly, I had absolute certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. The next morning, I arrived at my new office on the 41st floor, with its Chicago River view. On my desk was a flower arrangement from Richard Sterling and Evelyn Reed, looking forward to continuing our partnership. But first, I placed Blake's coffee mug on my bookshelf where I could see it daily. The mug, with its sarcastic message about names not mattering as much as brands, had become my favorite reminder. The people who build brands, nurture relationships, and write small print that protects everyone's interest, those people matter more than anyone realizes. And sometimes, if you're patient and careful enough, you can wait for people who don't understand that to teach the lesson to themselves. 6 months later, I got a LinkedIn message from Blake. He had started his own consulting company specializing in disruptive brand strategies and wondered if I might provide a reference for his work with Titan Corp. I never responded. Some lessons are more valuable when people learn them alone. The Titan contract was renewed for 3 years, valued at $92 million. Every morning when I walked into my office and saw that coffee mug on my bookshelf, I smiled and remembered that names do matter. Brands are built on relationships, and the people who understand that will always have the last word.